Yo, Toshi here. Today, we are going to talk about the rise of the ice element. This is an element that has been strong since day one in Honkai Star Rail, but the truth is we haven't had a strong character like Jinglu to be released in the element. You know how we had Seal in the Quantum element from day one, we had the release of Fushuan later, and we had Silverwolf, who was another Quantum character. So Quantum has been pretty stacked when it comes to overall characters for the element. The imaginary element, the other strongest element in the game, while we had characters like Denhang and Bibicho Lanai, Luocha is a very nice imaginary character, but he isn't really that much of an I mean, his ultimate can be really good for breaking the toughness of enemies, but when you think of imaginary, you think of Welt, Denhang, and Bibicho Lanai. These are characters that have a lot of toughness bar breaking potential and can be a very nice character for those elements. These are characters that are very nice for the element they're in, because they are very nice offenders of the weakness break system for those elements in this game. So Quantum being able to delay the enemy's action, you deal damage to that enemy, and then once that enemy takes their turn, they will get a huge dot-like attack. Well, that dot isn't increased by any type of multiplier or anything like that. It's just a straight up dot that the enemy takes whenever they take their turn. One thing to take into consideration though is that it stacks up to 5 additional hits. So after 5 hits, you can't stack it any further, so it has a damage cap. Well, the imaginary just delays the enemy action and pushes them back. The theoretical damage is higher with the imaginary element because, well, if the enemy has their speed reduced and their delayed action, then you'll take more turns, especially if you have characters like Walt in the party that can reduce the speed of the enemy further. So then you have the imaginary arguably having higher damage thresholds because of how strong the reduced speed is. But now we have the ice element, and this element seems to be extremely strong, and I'll explain why. You probably have seen people use Remembrance Path for the Swarm Disaster, and that path is absolutely broken. It's a little bit of cheese because you delay the enemy's action, you freeze them, and you do this over and over and over again, rendering the enemy useless and unable to take turns. Well, you can pretty much do the same thing in regular combat with the ice element, because as long as you get the toughness bar broken an enemy constantly, you're going to delay their action and deal mass amounts of damage. Now, another thing to take into consideration about ice is that it scales really well with dots. The reason being is because whenever that enemy takes their turn, well, they'll take damage from the dot, and furthermore, that enemy will have their action delayed, and then once they take their turn again, they'll take another dot tick from all the dots that are procced on the character, or enemy, not character, enemy in this case. So it leads me to believe that ice may actually be one of the strongest top 3 elements in the game. It may even be the strongest in many scenarios. We haven't really had a chance to see it shine, but Jing Lu has brought the element to the spotlight alongside Pela because these two are AoE toughness bar breaking machines together. Now, even if you don't have Jing Lu and you use her technique before the battle starts and you engage with the opponent, the enemy will already be frozen. Now, the cool thing about this is if your Jing Lu is fast enough and already takes the turn, well, you can deal toughness bar damage to the enemy while the enemy's already frozen, and you're going to see the enemy get his action forward pushed back. So he's going to go all the way back down, and we can do that again if he's frozen, right after breaking his toughness. That's what makes the ice element really strong, is because you already have the chance of freezing the enemy, and you can freeze the enemy furthermore. So now that the enemy is frozen, if the enemy had a dot and he took his turn, he's going to take damage from that dot and then be pushed back. So characters like Yang Xing has a dot built into his kit that allows him to do more damage to the enemy additionally whenever that enemy takes his turn, while having a freeze in his kit as well. So Yang Xing is very nice with the ice element, and Jinglu is another character that is really good with the ice element, her being an AoE damage dealer. Characters like Pela scale really well with the ice element because Pela can take many turns. If you have the wind set on her, you can do mass defense shred on the enemy, doing more damage and a lot of toughness to multiple enemies. And on top of that, she is really nice with every other ice damage dealer, especially Jinglu. I keep bringing up Jinglu because these two characters are extremely good. Like, we haven't had a synergy like this before, like the release of Silverwolf and Seal, for instance. Think of Silverwolf and Seal as Jinglu and Pela, right? So one of the impressive things about a character like Jeopard is that he's actually really nice in dot teams, and I'm going to explain to you why. The cool thing about Jeopard is he is one of the best sustained characters in the game, right? You all understand how valuable he is. He has a very strong shield. If you have like 4K defense on the character, you're going to have an unbreakable shield for all of your allies. I don't know why he's blushing right now. Why is he flustered? If you have his best in Salt Light Cone, you can increase his effect hit rate, which allows him to get that freeze on the enemy more consistently. You don't necessarily need to have it, but it is pretty solid to have. Jeopard has a 65% base chance of freezing the enemy with his elemental skill. Now, this does increase further with his first Eidolon, increasing that number to 100%. And while the 100% chance to freeze the enemy is extremely strong, because if you use him in dot teams with characters like Kafka, the enemy will take 2 dots instead of 1 dot. The cool thing about Eidolon 1 for Jeopard is a game changer for the character. It allows him to be a very solid sustained character in many team compositions, preferably dot. I keep bringing up dot because he has pretty solid synergy with characters like Kafka because of this freeze. So you don't even need to have Jeopard in the same party with dot characters. You can use March 7th, and March 7th on her freeze build is actually a very nice character to use as a solo sustain for memories at Chaos Floor 10. Many people have been using March 7th. She is free. You get her in the game. Every player has her, and she has a very nice kit, allowing her to constantly freeze the enemy and allow your characters to take less damage overall. So right now, we already have a dot placed on the enemy. So what I'm going to do is freeze with Jeopard's elemental skill. And right here, once the enemy takes a turn, they're going to take damage from the dots and then be pushed back. And then when we can proc the dots with Kafka, but I'm not going to proc just to show it. And then they take more damage. So they take 2 procs of the dot instance. So you can't do this with any other element in the game. You can't immobilize the enemy with Quantum and then have that enemy take 2 instances of the damage dots it had on its status effects. You can't do this with the imaginary either, because all you do is delay the enemy's action and reduce the speed. So it's very interesting how the freeze effect works in this game and how the weakness break effect works with ice as well. It is very, very strong, and it has a very nice spot with dot teams. We'll see a lot more of this whenever we get a character in the future that works well with dot teams as an enabler. Maybe a ice character that is able to increase the speed of the team. How insane would that be? That's going to be the video here. I hope you got something out of this. So there you have it. The ice element is looking to become maybe the strongest element in the game. Now, it's been strong since day one, but the truth is we haven't had any nice offenders of the element. You know, Silverwolf being one of the best offenders of the quantum element, Seal being another nice offender of the quantum element. You know, characters like Welt being a very nice offender of the imaginary element, and then you have Denham Bibitu doing mass toughness bar breaking on multiple enemies at once, and you're going to constantly delay the enemy's action with the character. So he's really good with the element he resides in. But as of recently, we've only had Jinglu. Yangqing is good, but he's single target, and he's fairly slow. He's not like Seal where you can take multiple turns and constantly break the toughness of the enemy. He has RNG in his kit as well. Let's not, forget that. But Jinglu has AoE. She can take multiple turns. You can use Bronya, give her an additional turn, but she has AoE. That's the first thing, first and foremost. And she has ways of increasing her damage, right? Because she has an additional turn, and she is able to do much more toughness breaking because of that. So she's a very nice offender of the ice element. You pair with Pela, then you have an unstoppable duo. Now, whenever we do get another character in the future, primarily we need more ice characters. And I'm looking forward to an ice character that is of the Harmony path. Once we do get that character, well, maybe ice will become the strongest element in the game. Now, we have Mono Quantum on the way with a Harmony Quantum character, and I think that may just be the strongest element when that character arrives. But ice is looking to be a top contender, so we'll have to wait and see what the future holds, and I'm really looking forward to that Harmony ice character. This is the video here. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.